Hello guys, welcome to my channel. Every man has a story. This video here is replacing the very first video that I ever did when I started my channel. I kind of told my story about why I ended up in the Philippines, and I wasn't ever happy with the quality of that video. It was shot indoors. It was shot with an old cell phone that didn't work very well, and so I thought I would redo it because it is one of my more popular videos and kind of tell you the story again of why I ended up here in the Philippines. I worked on cruise ships for many years, and a lot of the people I worked with were from the Philippines, and they were some of the nicest people I ever met, but for whatever reason, I never had a desire to come to the Philippines. I've been to over 100 countries around the world, but I never really considered going to the Philippines at all. When my life started basically unraveling, which was many years ago, I guess it started with a divorce, and went from there. Fortunately for me, when I got divorced, it was a very amicable split. We were still friends for a long time and keep in touch and help each other, and never a harsh word. It just wasn't working out after about 15 years of being together. So anyway, that was the start of it. And then I had a business that I owned in Utah. It was a roller skating rink. My wife and I owned together. And for various reasons I'm not going to go into here, we had to file for bankruptcy. Lost a great deal of money there, about $800,000. And that was a huge blow. And that's when I went back to working on cruise ships, which turned out to be a good thing for me, but a bad thing for the relationship, which led, to the divorce. Eventually, my wife and daughters, I agreed for them to move back to England. The reason is that my oldest daughter is autistic, and we were getting no help at all from the government in America. I mean, nothing at all. And so in England, because my daughters have dual citizenship, she has all kinds of programs that were provided, health insurance, everything, special schools for autistic kids. And so we agreed that it would be the best thing. Plus my wife wanted to get involved with business in London. She had a lot of contacts over there, and it was good schools for my youngest daughter too, so we agreed on it. And for many years, my daughters would come and visit me 2 or 3 times a year and stay for a month, sometimes longer, usually in the summertime, but later on, my oldest daughter would come 2 or 3 times a year and stay for at least a month. So it worked out. But for those of you that have children, when your child comes and stays with you, you try and all of a sudden have this normal life. You're in the house, they have their own bedrooms and everything, and you're pretending like everything's wonderful and doing fun things and trying to make every day as meaningful as possible. And then they go home. It's like a shot in the heart. I mean, it's like death, at least it was for me, every time they went home. So that went on for 15 years. 15 years of that. Like every time they would come, I was happy to see them. When they would leave, I was so sad. And I think that has a lot to do with why I ended up having bypass surgery. One day I was out just mowing my lawn and shoulder started hurting. I'm sweating profusely. And I was in good shape. I don't smoke, I work out, never overweight, not healthy diet. And went to my doctor. He said, oh, you're fine, nothing wrong with you. He said, but just in case, we'll send you down to the heart clinic that was very close to where I lived, a brand new clinic in Louisville. And I went there, they did chest x-ray, EKG, everything's fine. And I said, well, my father, who was an athlete, rode his bicycle all the way to Kansas City from Louisville. He had quadruple bypass surgery when he was about my age. And I said, oh, well, we'll do an angiogram the next day. And so went back to the hospital the next day, had an angiogram. I woke up the angiogram, the surgeons were all standing around me. They said, look, if you don't get an ambulance right now and go over to this other hospital in Louisville and have quadruple bypass surgery, you're gonna die, period. Quadruple, blockage in 90% of your arteries, and I had no clue. Amazing. So that was like another thing. It was just like thing after thing after thing happening, like a slow death by 1,000 cuts. And so I had to stop working, obviously, for several months, which hurt. And I was going through a personal bankruptcy, so I ended up having my house foreclosed on, which was painful. The house that my daughters came and visited me in. So I lost that. And of course, all my investment and equity in the house was all gone. And the worst part was I didn't have any place for my daughters to come visit me anymore. And so the last time I saw my one daughter, my oldest daughter, was in Florida. I rented an Airbnb in Miami. She came down and we spent a month together and did a lot of fun things. And then I had to explain to her, which is very difficult to explain to an autistic child, why, you know, she can never come back to that house again that she loved and grew up in, why we can't spend Christmas together, why we can't, all these things. I even had to show her pictures of what little things I had left, you know, in storage so she would understand. And that was painful, you know, another blow. And so she went back to England. I went back on a ship for a little while. That didn't work out for various reasons. I worked for many, many art companies, and it was just one of those businesses that was getting more, less profitable all the time. It used to be very lucrative, and then it got less and less and less as the years went on. But I just wanted to go back on a ship. I'd been selling cars, Land Rovers and Jaguars, and I was very good at the job. Had a nice dealership, nicest dealership in Louisville. I just hated the job, absolutely hated it. And so I was depressed from that, depressed my daughters, depressed in the house. And I was staying at my mother's house for a little while. I was supposed to be for a couple of weeks. I was going to get an apartment. And I just started looking at my life, and I was just miserable, absolutely miserable. I mean, living off Social Security, the money that I made selling cars, and I was paying, credit cards off that I'd used to go to Miami with my daughter. And every time my daughters come visit me for that last like 5 years, because of things were happening to me, I'd use my credit cards to do fun things with them, and then they'd leave and I have to pay all that money off. So it was just a slow progression of things getting worse and worse. But once I lost the house, I realized that I wasn't going to have any place to see my daughters again. I wasn't going to be able to afford to have an Airbnb in Miami or any place else. Plus, my oldest daughter was in university. She graduates next year in London. And I just realized that I was going to probably never see my daughters again. If I did, it was going to be for some short amount of time, a week or two here or in London or wherever, which, again, sometimes the short visits were worse than the long ones because, it's just so painful when they left. And I just never got over that. And so I started thinking, I just got to do something. I kept telling myself, I got to change my life, I got to change my life. And I didn't know how to change it, but it was like a, not a mantra, but an affirmation. And I got to change my life. And I was just like, I was passionately just saying that to myself. And your brain, I think when you do something like that, it's like a computer program. And so when you're sleeping and when you're not doing anything, your mind is totally thinking like, okay, how can I change my life? How can I change my life? And I just came up with the idea, I got to go to another country. I got to go someplace else. This is not working here. I don't want to be here. Go to another country. So my first thought was Thailand. I'd been there one time on a cruise ship many, many years ago. But I had friends that went there and actually lived there that I worked with on ships. Americans who lived in Thailand when they weren't on ships, and they loved it, said how great it was. So I thought, well, I'll go to Thailand. Looked into prices, and they were fairly affordable, one-way ticket. And then I started looking at videos on YouTube. Started hearing about, well, you got to get health insurance now if you're over 50, and the visa thing is changing, and you got to do these visa runs outside the country and come back. And then just totally by accident, I stumbled across some videos about guys who were in the Philippines. Oh, this is interesting. And I realized that the infrastructure in the Philippines is not as good as Thailand, not even close. The hospitals aren't as good as in Thailand. The food's not as good as in Thailand. But the people are friendly. Most people speak English. The flight was about the same. And I just all of a sudden said, that's it. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to Philippines. And it's like I told myself that's what I was going to do, but I didn't really believe it. And I was just at a point in my life where I was just really, really depressed. And then it's like the depression left after a while, but then it was just like a feeling of just blah, like nothing to look forward to, nothing, I could go back to selling cars and make enough money to get a small little apartment, decent apartment. I still had a nice car. I hadn't sold my car yet. And every day would be like the same, would be the same, you know, get up, go to work, sit in the office, meetings, sell a car or two, the same shit, and it's just bleak, bleak, bleak. And I actually started considering suicide. That's, you know, a difficult thing to talk about, but it wasn't out of depression, or I wasn't feeling sorry for myself. I just felt like, you know, what's the point? I just felt like, well, what's the point of continuing on? I've had a great life. I've been around the world. I've done all kinds of cool stuff, you know, met cool people. And just like, what's the point of continuing on? I don't get it. You know, just give up, you know. I had a rope and everything. I actually wrote the suicide notes out to all the members of my family and planned when I was going to do it and everything. And, you know, I'm still thinking about the Philippines, but I just said, you know, I wasn't going to do that. It was like, you know, a pipe dream. I actually planned the day I was going to end everything. It was the day my mother was going to play bridge. When she played bridge, she'd been gone for a long time. And it was in the winter time. So she goes to play, she's going to go play bridge that day. And so I wake up, she'd get up really early, like, you know, she'd get up like 5:30, I get up like, you know, 6:37. And so I wake up and she's still there. Aren't you going to play bridge? No, it might snow today. I don't want to go out in the snow. And I said, okay, so I just sat on my computer, so I'm just going to book the ticket. Got my credit cards out, I called them all up to find out which one had enough money on it. And found a cheap ticket on one of the websites, I don't remember which one. And I just booked the ticket. And I booked the ticket, I couldn't believe I actually did. I still didn't believe I was going to actually go. It's like, you know, you do something, and it was a non-refundable ticket too. It's like $600, I remember, which was a ton of money to me back then, a ton. And it was for like in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I think 3 weeks. So that night, you know, I'm talking to my mother, and my mother and I are very close. She had me when she was 18 years old, and we've almost been like brother and sister, you know, so we're very close. And we're sitting outside having coffee after dinner, and I told her, oh, I don't believe that. Why are you going to do that? You know, that doesn't make any sense. And what happens if this happens? What if that happens? I said, look, Mom, I have to do this. I have to go someplace. I just have to go someplace. And after a few days, she kind of accepted it. And I just started, like, had a storage locker with a lot of stuff. It was a big storage locker, like the size of a 2-car garage. And it's full of stuff. And so I started selling stuff on Craigslist. I listed my car, and I wasn't having any luck at all selling the car. It was an Infiniti FX45 that I bought new back when I was making a lot of money with on the ships. I bought it back in 2005, so it wasn't a new car, but it looked like it came off the showroom floor. So I'm selling stuff on Craigslist every day, meeting people at the locker, and selling stuff, practically giving it away, you know. Things I spent lots of money were giving it away. And I pared it down to enough where I could move everything from that locker to a much smaller locker that cost $100 a month. And then still couldn't sell the car. And this car, like, I would never do this again, but at the time I was making a lot of money. You know, this is back in 2005 when I bought my house. When, like, the peak of my career and success. You know, I was making like $20,000 a month before taxes, and I was paying $7,000 a month in child support and alimony. And I just thought the good times were going to continue rolling. I was wrong; they weren't. So anyway, this car I'd bought back in 2005, Infiniti FX45. I bought every option that was on it. It was in mint condition, been kept in the garage. It had very low miles because I was on ships all the time, so when I wasn't on ships, it was in my garage. Anyway, my brother said he would take the car and try and sell it for me when I left to the Philippines. So I just gave him the keys to the car, took it over to his house, and the day kept getting closer and closer. I went to the bank, and I had like $2,000 in cash, and I bought ordered from the bank Philippine pesos, so I had that. And the day just came. All of a sudden, you know, there it was. The day was there, and I was, you know, going to the Philippines. Oh, another thing that happened, I forgot. This is important. Before I decided to come to the Philippines, I had a business idea that I come up with Holland America, where my background is doing art on ships and also entertainment director. And so there's a very famous, one of the most famous landscape artists in the world. I'll say his name. His name is Jeff Mitchum. And a friend of mine knew Jeff Mitchum, a very good friend of mine of 15, 20 years, knew Jeff Mitchum. And I said, well, you know, we could get the whole contract with Holland America, because the company that I just finished working for, which was going bankrupt, was pulling off all the Holland America ships. And I said, well, we can, I think I can get the contract. I know the president of Onboard Revenue. I met him. I think I could contact him and convince him to do photographs, really nice, high quality photographs. And Jeff Mitchum had some photographs for like $10,000, $20,000. I mean, magnificent, huge photographs. And so I talked to my friend, his name was Richard. I talked to Jeff Mitchum, and they said, great idea, we love it. If you can get the contract, we'll do this, the three of us, we'll make tons of money. And so I put the whole thing together over many, many months of pushing the head people at Holland America. I drove all the way down to Miami, went down there twice actually, had meetings with the people from Holland America. Jeff came, my friend Richard came, and they loved the idea, loved it. Loved Jeff, it's great. On the way back, car sideswiped my car and smashed the whole side of it in. And that cost me $1,000 in deductible. I had insurance. Cost me $1,000 in deductible. They fixed it all up, you know. And so the car had been wrecked, you know, so that devalued it some, because that's all in the, you know, the records, obviously. And then I get home and, like, you know, so that was like an omen when that happened on the way back. It was like an omen. And we're back and forth, like, talking about what we're going to do, because these guys were, one was in California, Jeff was in California, and Richard was in Florida. And then the people from Holland America were in Seattle, Washington, and in Florida, back and forth. And we're talking, working everything out, you know, we're going to do all these great things. And then we went down, signed the contract. Oh, they agreed on the contract. We didn't sign anything. And then I was waiting to hear from Jeff and hear from Richard, and all of a sudden I get a phone call from Richard. He said, I got some bad news for you. And I said, you know, what is it? What's wrong? He said, well, Holland America and Jeff have decided that it's best if we move forward without you. We don't really need you. I mean, we got Jeff, we got Holland America. You know, Jeff knows what he wants to do as far as publishing, and I know what to do as far as sales, so we just don't really need you. And so, you know, it was all my idea. This whole thing was my idea. I put the whole thing together. We were going to make, you know, millions of dollars. At least we thought we were. We had no idea the pandemic was coming. And so anyways, you know, that was the whole thing. So that was a huge punch in the gut. I mean, a huge, huge punch in the gut. I mean, I felt like, you know, I literally felt like somebody put a knife to my heart, because it was like I was putting all my hopes on this thing. This was going to change my life. This was my one big shot. This was everything. And now I had nothing. And so anyway, fast forward back where we were before. I said, you know, I'm leaving or ending it. It's one of the two. Either checking out or I'm going to go to the Philippines. So anyway, the day comes around, I get on the plane, mother takes me to the airport, packed all my stuff, fly to Incheon in South Korea, get there, long, brutal flight in coach, spend the night at the airport. They had a 15-hour layover. Spent the night in Incheon. Next day had most of the day in Cebu. Actually, I spent the night in Cebu too when I got there at Mactan Airport. Went to the mall, got a SIM card for my phone, a few other things, and I had booked an Airbnb here in Dumaguete, a place called the Pyramid House. And I set up my, I got hired actually with Cambly. I talk about that in other videos, teaching English online, basically tutoring English, not really teaching like Gio does, but tutoring English online. And that was set up. I hadn't actually started it yet, but I had the computer. I bought a new computer, again on credit cards. So I was all set, a new computer, new cell phone, and was ready for my new life in the Philippines. And so I get to Dumaguete, and the owner of the Pyramid House where I was staying, this Airbnb, was going to come pick me up. So I bought a lot of shit. I had 3 suitcases full of, like, you never know what you're going to need when you're going to live in another country. So I brought too much stuff. I had my computer bag on top of this, like 3 suitcases all stacked up and waiting for her to come. And the computer bag falls off and hits the ground. I pick it back up thinking nothing about it. We get to Pyramid House. I get in my room, which is very plain. This is like no air conditioning, a little fan in the bolted to the wall. Had my own bathroom, but I had it in a kitchen. But it was very basic, very basic. Anyway, I go to the next day. I want to get to work on Cambly because that's how I'm going to survive, is making money tutoring English. And so I get the computer out, and I realize it's broken. When I dropped it, the screen popped out. Computer wouldn't power on at all. It was dead. Brand new computer. So I take my Swiss Army, I'm panicking. I said, what am I going to do now? Because I can't survive without, this little job, basically $5 an hour job. I mess around with this computer, and I'm trying everything. I snap it back together, take it apart, put it together. And I know nothing about fixing anything, let alone a computer. And I pushed the button, and magically it came on, and it worked perfectly. To this day, I have no idea what I did. So I started working on Cambly. I'm making a little bit of money. I find that this is fun. It's easy. I can do this. And I'm getting, lots of students. And I'm not making much money, like, an extra, what was it, like $20, $30 a day, something like that. That's what I'm making. But I realized I can afford to live someplace better than where I'm living. Where I was living was 12,000 pesos a month with free internet. But it wasn't a very nice place. And I just wanted, if I was going to be here, I just wanted to have a decent place to live. That's all I wanted. And so I'd seen on YouTube, on reekay's channel, many of you that watch videos on Philippines know about reekay, and he had done a video about a place called Dulce Vida. It looked very California-ish, And so I found that place. It was very close, like within 5 kilometers where I was staying. Went over there, checked it out, really liked it. They had a studio apartment. And it was 18,000 pesos, which works out to about 400, right? What was 18,000? 10,000 pesos is $200, so it's like $260, something like that. And I moved in there, very happy there, stayed there for like 7, 8 months. And then I found this place, which is built by a gentleman who actually stayed at Dulce Vida for many months while he was building his own house, which is right behind me here. And basically what I'm saying is that I didn't come here for a girl, didn't meet anybody online, nothing like that. I was here for survival, literally it was survival to come here. And once, I got my computer working, and then the next thing that happened, within a week I met somebody, a friend of mine from Germany, or I met him here, became my friend, and we went hiking to Castro Waterfalls, which is right up the hill there, one of the largest waterfalls in the Philippines. Had a little fanny pack with my brand new Samsung Galaxy S9 phone in it, my keys, some other stuff. And I get to the waterfall to take out my phone and take some pictures, and the fanny pack is gone, and I lost it in the river. So I messed up my brand new computer, broke it, and lost my brand new cell phone, $600 cell phone. I offered some boys a reward of 1,000 pesos, which is 20 bucks, if they could find it. And lo and behold, the next day, they showed up at the Pyramid House with a phone. And of course it was ruined, but at least I could get the SIM card out of it. And then I brought my old Galaxy S7, which had a cracked screen and everything else, as like a backup. And so that was my phone until I got the one I'm using now. But the thing was, that was kind of a turning point, the phone thing. When I got the phone back, right after that, things just started turning around. I moved into Dulce Vida. Things kept getting better and better and better. I made a lot of friends, started having a social life. I was making enough money on Cambly to not only, with my Social Security, to pay my bills, pay my rent, to have money for recreation. I could actually go out to dinner and not worry about it, go to the store and not worry about what I spent. And it just kept getting better and better, And then I started my YouTube channel, which did absolutely nothing for like the first month or two. And then it started taking off. I started making a little bit of money there. And then I met Jen, my girlfriend, which you see her on a video on this channel. And that made things even better and better, obviously. And so basically for me, coming here turned my life around 180 degrees. And it gets better every day. And so for those of you thinking about coming here, whatever your reasons, go for it. That's all I have to say. I mean, get your finances in order, bring as much money as you possibly can. Do some research online about where you want to stay. Right now, there's lots of apartments, lots of houses, because guys are leaving or have left and aren't coming back because they can't get a visa. But the country's going to open back up eventually. When it does, it worked for me, But, that's my reason for coming here was, my life was, as far as I was concerned, was over. It wasn't for a girl. I didn't start dating until I'd been here for like a month. And even then it was like, one date here, like a cup of coffee, something like that. So anyway, I'll be happy to answer your comments if there's guys that are thinking about it or in similar situations. I try to respond to comments and give you a little advice I've got. There's many other channels that have detailed information about rent and visas and, meeting girls, all that stuff, so you might be better off or better served checking out those channels if that's what you want to know. But if you just want, a sympathetic ear or a little more information, I'd be happy to answer your questions. And that's it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Apologize for the ads. Just trying to make a living, and they're only a few seconds long, so I'm sorry about that. Thanks a lot. Bye.